Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and I have a really super special guest today. You can probably actually see him on this recording. This is Stephen Ozanich. He's the author of the book, The Great Pain Deception, and he's got another book coming out, and he's done some amazing work that has hugely impacted my life in a really big way. I was lucky enough to be introduced to Stephen about a year and a half ago, and I was lucky to get a consultation with him before I even read his book because I just happened to be connected to the right person. And I was having some serious knee pain and foot pain that was not attributed to an injury. There was nothing broken, there was nothing strained or sprained or anything. And I had seen all kinds of people, I'd gotten all kinds of treatments, I'd had x-rays to make sure that it wasn't broken or hurt or anything. And I was still having chronic pain, and it stopped me from hiking and teaching. I teach a class once a week. I've always been teaching, exercise classes, and it stopped me for almost a whole season. So I met Stephen, I had a phone call with him, and he said, well, in order for me to really help you, you need to read my book, because there's just so much information that I would need to get on my own besides, him telling me. It would just be better. So I bought the book, and this was back in August of 2014. And then I didn't do anything. I didn't read the book. I just carried on with my life. I still had pain. And then about a year ago in February, so February 2015, I get this email from Steve. And he says to me, hey, Jane, how are you? And I was just like, I was so kind of mortified and like seriously embarrassed because I had not done anything. And I had the book, I bought it, but I just hadn't read it. So I promised him right then and there that I would read his book. So I started reading the book, and I was done in about a week. And by the time I closed the last page, and this is not kidding, my pain was 90% gone just from reading this book. And I was absolutely floored. But everything that I read made sense to me. And my brain just went, oh my gosh, my body is causing physical pain as a distraction from all these things in my life. And every single thing that I read, it was stunning to me. So Stephen, I know I can see you sitting here nodding because this is something that you hear all the time from every single person you talk to. So that's my story in a nutshell. And if there's any other details I can add while we're talking, I will. But the information that you have to share is so powerful that this is something that feels really close to my heart that I want to share. Your work, Dr. Sarno's work, and the things that you can actually do to help people get out of chronic pain. So I've got a little list of stuff we're going to talk about, but I know we're just going to flow. So why don't you just let people know who you are, tell them your story, and we can kind of go from there.
Sure. That was a nice story. It's very common, except you're one of the few that are honest enough to admit, I didn't do anything, because really, just to take Dr. Sarno's words, virtually every single person heals. But you have to be ready, and you have to be willing to accept it. But as far as my story, I've told it so many times, but it's always good to encapsulate it again. I was in pain for 3 decades of my life. The main pain was back pain, but I had the other pains like everybody else: foot pain, hip pain, stomach problems, common things. But the back pain was persistent, and it was maddening. I tried everything. I went to chiropractors and surgeons and injections, and I hung upside down like a bat at one point. And I tried every new thing out there. And in the 1990s, it got really bad. It crippled me completely. And I was at the end of my rope. And I found Dr. Sarno's work on TMS, and I healed. And I didn't believe it at first either. Like the majority of people don't believe it, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe it either for various reasons, a complex host of reasons, one of which was a brilliant observation on his part, why people don't. But so I found out about TMS, and it saved my life. And as soon as people found out that I healed, I started getting bombarded with emails and phone calls, help me. And I thought, well, okay. So I started working with these people right around 2000, somewhere between that and 2001. And they were healing. They were healing and healing and healing, just like you did. And so they kept saying, you got to write this down. You got to write this down. I said, Dr. Sarno already wrote it down. he did such a great job of writing very simple terms, a very complex topic for people to understand. But, I decided I'll add my human story to his work. And then I'll expand on the philosophy, the psychology of it. And that's what I did. And so I'm honored all these years later, it's been 16 years, that I get the same statement. Steve's book is a great supplement and complement to Dr. Sarno's work, which is a great honor because he was the greatest pain doctor that ever lived.
Okay, so if you were to tell people, you threw out TMS out there. So tell us in a layman's term explanation, what is TMS? And also Dr. Sarno, because when I met you, I'd never heard of Dr. Sarno. And I know he's like this really amazing healer. I've since become a really, really big fan and advocate of his work, but I'd never heard of him. And I'm in natural healing. So explain to us what TMS is and maybe a little bit of history on Dr. Sarno. I think that'd be really helpful.
Sure. TMS is an acronym that has actually evolved through the years. It's one that he created. It started off as tension myositis syndrome. But then as he began to notice more, it was more than muscle. Myo means muscle. It actually involved nerves and tendons too. And so he evolved that term to tension myoneural syndrome.
Okay.
And then towards the end of his career, he began calling it the mind-body syndrome because it affects more than the body. It affects the immune system, the derma, how we respond to life. It's very, very all-encompassing term now to collectively pull all the acronyms together. But TMS is the term, and he created it. It's one of the greatest discoveries in medical history and deserving of a Nobel Prize. And it's literally saved the lives of millions of people because I consult with people in dozens of countries, and they're all holding his books up in their language. That's awesome. He has just enriched the lives of everybody so much. And his name is John Sarno. He's now retired. He was at the New York University Medical Center for 50 years. And so I often tease, maybe it takes 5 decades of a career to really pull the big picture together like he did.
Well, I just had a thought when you were saying about it, like he should get a Nobel Prize and it's one of the greatest services. And the thing is, being a person who's in natural healing and natural medicine, you always hear, there's always this new thing that's the game changer. And there's always this new technique and this new, and to me, that's, I don't want people to discount this because they've heard that so many times. I really want people to realize that this is something that for someone like me who believes in the mind-body connection, excuse me, I had never really connected this on the level that I needed to connect it, because what I think happens is we start to feel pain in our body and we start to accept it as we get older. Now, my story is different than yours because I didn't start having chronic pain like this until I was in my 50s, early 50s. So all these years I've been healthy and strong and no pain. And, I might have a little injury or sore muscles, but not anything like chronic pain. So my biggest thing is I want people to realize this amazingly beautiful gold nugget of information that if they will just open their mind, can make such a difference in the way that their body heals. That
was a great point that I don't bring up a lot. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Some people will dismiss it as being too new agey and all these things, but this is real medical science. Psychology and the body, healing of the body. He was a medical doctor. He wasn't a telemarketer or anything. He was a medical doctor with a great career. But that is a great point. When people hear, I found the magic bullet, you shut off right immediately.
Yeah, and I don't want people to do that.
It's the mattress, it's the pillow, it's all of these things, it's the temperature, all these things that everyone has the answer. And so it is white noise again when somebody comes in and does it. But this works consistently over 5 decades. It works every day. It's working every single day. And so I urge anybody who has tried everything and it hasn't worked to look into this because it will revolutionize your life. That is a really great point to bring up. But, maybe we should talk a little bit about what TMS is then, what he covered there.
Yeah.
That he discovered early on that his therapies that he was handing out to his back pain patients wasn't working. It was the same problems every other doctor had, extremely low rate of success. You can't even really use the word success. It was a failure. And so he started talking to the people, and he started noticing a pattern. These people were driven people, very nice, gentle, hyper responsible in many cases, anxious to some degree, warriors. And he started seeing these patterns in everybody. And so he started looking deeper into their charts, and there it was. They had all kinds of other problems. His back pain patients had skin problems, immune problems, other pain syndromes. So as he got into it deeper and deeper, he started noticing, hey, there's something more going on here. And of course, he realized at one point, this is a diversion. The brain is creating the symptoms, the physical symptoms in the body, as a favor to the person to divert their awareness, their mind's eye, away from all the things that they don't want to think about to their body. And now they're obsessed on the body. They're thinking about the body all the time. And so the brain has done its job. It's fooled you into thinking something's wrong with the body. But I need to say here too, from experience, people will say, oh, you're telling me it's all in my head then. Well, no. He said, this is the most painful thing I've ever seen in clinical medicine. It is a real pain, but it begins in the mind, and then it manifests in the body as a real physical pain, debilitating sometimes. And so it's important to state these things on, because a lot of people will shut off. Well, my pains are real. I hear this all the time. My pain's real. Well, my pain had me, I lost 50 pounds in the 1990s. I was on my hands and knees crawling around. I had a paralyzed leg, no reflexes, completely numb. I drug it around for 9 months, and it was a blood flow problem. That's what he discovered. The brain is reducing the blood flow just slightly to create this horrific pain, so that you will be riveted to your body, what it's doing every day. You're obsessing on it. What's my body doing? How's it going to be? And so over here, it's keeping you away from the shiny object over here. And it was a brilliant discovery that very few people want to believe, and very few people will accept. And we can talk about that too.
Yeah, well, and I think part of the reason people don't want to accept it is because they get to a point where they let their physical pain define them, and it starts to define them as a person, and it also gives them an excuse to get out of things in life that they don't want to deal with or face. That's just my own theory.
Right. I mean, that's right. If you want me to, I can run over the reasons that I'm seeing why people don't want to accept it. I think the first one is that it's unconscious.
Well, yeah.
What that means is that you're not aware of it. And unconscious has two different meanings. One is you're knocked out, which we're not talking about that. It's subconscious. You can use it's the same thing. So they're not aware of it. They have no idea what their brain is diverting their mind to their body for. They have no idea. And so people just don't want to believe that because they cannot see it. But the proof is that, this is not conjecture anymore or theory. This is medical fact. They are healing by the millions. Everybody's healing that accepts it and understands it. And so it's just what you would call axiomatic at some point. It's true from all angles, no matter how you look at it. But people don't want to believe it. First of all, it's unconscious. And so we really like to see things before we believe them. As studies, give me a number. And another part of that is the placebo effect. The placebo effect is so powerful, and it has so many people confused in our culture. They'll have a surgery, and say on a knee or a back or whatever, and if the pain goes away, they say, oh, see, you're wrong. It was physical. The surgery took it away. But what they don't realize, the brain believed that the surgery worked.
Right.
And it did not really work. It shifts it, which is another great concept of his, the symptom imperative. It'll go to the other knee or the other shoulder, or like Tiger Woods right now, to a disc above or a disc below, or slide towards the hip. And so they're saying, well, now I've got another problem. No, they don't. They have the exact same problem. The surgery didn't work. And so besides being unconscious, You've got the placebo effect that people are chasing with all these medical procedures in the world, and they're thinking, well, it worked, so it was a physical problem. It wasn't. Okay, and then there are other things like the need. You just hinted on that.
Yeah.
If you need it, what he proved is it's a protective barrier for you. It's protecting you from this overwhelming thoughts and emotions when we get overstressed in our life, or we've had tragedy or something like that, or our rage has risen to a level that's so high that it actually scares us. We repress these things. It's done so automatically.
Let me say one thing about the whole rage thing, because honestly, when you first talked with me and you said there's some anger, I was like, I am the least angry person ever. I am happy. And then we really got to the bottom of it during our conversation. And you know what? Yeah.
Good point. You know, I when I healed, it was like putting my own puzzle together, the me puzzle. I saw little glimmers of truth. I would grab that. I was piecing it together over a couple of years. The last piece of that puzzle that went in that healed me was when I saw Dr. Sarno in a lecture saying, any anger that you feel has nothing to do with your pain. It is the anger that you cannot feel that's causing it. That was a light bulb moment. Because
that's a good one.
I don't believe he ever said that in any of his books. I never read anything from him about it. And that was it. I started to piece it together. It's more deeply integrated into the deeper parts of the brain. It's unconscious. See, I didn't really understand what unconscious meant at the time. I would say, it's unconscious. I don't feel it. So what do you mean? But it's all of these things in our life that we naturally do as a byproduct of trying to get along and be nice people and to cope with all of our responsibilities. It's actually building up in us, building and building and building until it hits a certain threshold. And bam, all of a sudden, a symptom comes out of nowhere. And you go to the doctor, and now a series of bad things happens. Okay, and this is another reason why people don't want to accept it. Their doctors have convinced them that something's wrong with their physical body. They go to medical school to come up with answers. When people come in, I've got shoulder pain, I've got pain in my back. Well, here it is right here. And they'll look on the MRI, and they'll say, right there it is. You see that little degeneration or that little arthritis or that little herniation? But those things are not causing the pain. He proved that beyond any shadow of a doubt. In fact, there's about 40 studies out now that I just studied for my new book that prove that these things do not cause back pain. There is not one single study in all of medical literature that proves that they do. And yet people will go with the unproven side every time.
Yeah, but they don't know. And like you said, they listen to what their doctor says. They look on the MRI, they look on the X-ray, and they can say, look, there it is right there. And I think, one of my biggest things, and I know you know this already, but about 20 years ago, I had a water skiing accident and I disconnected most of my hamstring on one of my legs. And the doctor told me that I would be fine, but that I would never run again. And you know what I did? I believed him. I didn't even question it. I just thought, because this is what he told me. Your hamstring is connected to your glute, and it's mostly disconnected now, and you're not going to be able to propel yourself forward running, and because your hamstring's mostly disconnected. And so I just said, okay. I didn't even question it. So I think one of my big messages right here that you're hitting on right now is I think we're doing our medical profession, I almost hate to say this, but they're doing such a disservice to people. And they're not even giving them no hope, but they're saying, here's what's wrong with you. You're broken right here.
Right,
and
yeah.
We're not broken.
We want to naturally believe our physicians.
Yes,
they are the last line of defense between us and death.
Yeah,
there's a firewall there built in.
Right.
And so one of the biggest problems and why all of the pain epidemics, all of them are out of control. They're increasing. They're not getting better. We have the greatest medical techniques in the history of humankind, and it's all worse. Why? Because it's the wrong diagnosis. They're diagnosing the body as being broken or flawed. And that's where he came along, and he blew the entire paradigm to pieces. But you've got it right. You've got it right. Most of the epidemics, especially in back pain, because back pain is now the #1 cause of disability in the world. it's happened that way because people believe that everything their doctor tells them is true. And with these pain epidemics and many illnesses, they are completely wrong. They're completely wrong. And I also want to say this. This is not an anti-doctor message. You know, we're not out here bashing doctors. We need doctors. We need good doctors. It's the wrong diagnosis. What Dr. Sarno did was he re-diagnosed them when they came in. And that's another cool thing. He saw the patients that had tried everything in the world and it failed. So he saw the worst cases in the world and he had the highest success rate in the world because he re-diagnosed them. And he said, you know, that little tear in the knee and that rotator cuff tear and the spinal disc, that's not causing your pain. But about 80% of the people would not accept that. It would go on to live lives in pain. But for the reasons that I was mentioning a little bit earlier, you know, it's unconscious and the doctors brainwashed them, the placebo effect. But there's also another thing we're seeing, you know, there's other people taking his work and distorting it. And it's confusing people even more.
So how do we keep his message pure, Stephen?
That's a good question. You know, that he's frustrated with it, how they've spun his work. And that the handful of TMS physicians that he trained are very aggravated with it. But there's not much you can do. And I see these people all the time. They're contacting me. But Dr. Sarno said this, and this person said this. You know, and they're claiming to be mind-body physicians, but they're telling people things like, if you have sciatica or weakness and numbness, that's not TMS. That's a pinched nerve. No, it's not true. I had a paralyzed leg. I've talked to hundreds of people with those symptoms, and it was always TMS. They're telling people you got to go back to physical therapy, which is not true. That's the thing he told people to stop because that instills in your brain that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Anything that you physically do, anything that you do physically to heal is causing the pain to stay longer.
Yeah.
Because you're telling your body something's wrong with me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. In fact, one of the most powerful things you said to me in one of our conversations was, if you start to feel pain in your knee, because it didn't stay 90%, it went back down to sometimes like 80%, even 50% at sometimes during like last year while I was still fully recovering from this. And you said, even if you go out, be active, do your workouts, don't stop your hiking. And if you feel pain, hit it harder, like step harder, go harder. And you know what? Every single time I did that, the pain went away. Every single time. And before I met you, what would happen is I would feel a twinge in my knee or my foot because I had severe tendinitis in my foot. And I would feel like my knee was kind of slipping out of place. It would give me that much pain. I would just back off and stop, and I would be completely paralyzed that I was going to be doing more damage.
Right. And there's a warning here.
When you told me that, I was like, yeah, I am not going to accept this. There's nothing wrong with my body.
This is a great point too, and people need to know here that there's a fine line here between what I did and what you did.
Yeah.
One of the greatest statements that Dr. Sarno made that helped me heal was when he said, "One must confront TMS, fight it, or the symptoms will continue." But you have to be careful not to attack your pain as in physical therapy again. Because you're playing right into your brain's strategy again if you purposefully go after it. So there's a fine line between not letting it get you down, like we're talking about, going through it. You know, getting courage to know that I'm not being damaged when I feel the sensation there.
Right.
And I'm going to.
That's powerful for me.
Yeah. But people have to be careful there. Don't go out and just, if you go out and you attack the specific pain, you are playing right into your brain's grand scheme again. And
I'm not saying that. You know,
right,
I've always been physically active and very, you know, I've been a personal trainer. I am a physically fit, athletic person. And I know my body really, really well. And the pain that I was feeling, I don't feel like I was gonna damage it by.
Yeah, there's a deep level of knowing.
Yes, there is definitely a level of knowing. So, but that to me, when you told me that, because I had really thought, oh my gosh, my level of activity now as a person in my 50s is going to stop and slow down. And it was very discouraging for me. So when you encouraged me to push through those bits of and it wasn't like pain like I'm breaking a leg or something, not anything like that, but just the pain that I was feeling from all of that.
It's a resistance. You're deeper resisting. Yeah. And it will. You know, if you have TMS. Now, everybody in the world has TMS to some degree. Sometimes it's just a heartburn or little skin problem or maybe vision or ringing in the ears or whatever. But so it scans this whole spectrum from, just mild things to crippling. But everybody has some degree.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing is that it is working. I've personally worked with hundreds of people, and they get better. They get better, but they have to be ready. In other words, people can read my book or Dr. Sarno's work and say, didn't do anything. Well, there's enough information in all of those books to heal if you are ready. Yeah. It's a psychological defense mechanism. They will read one TMS book, then another, and another. What they're doing is they're delaying the inevitable. And I'm not saying that the people have failed. You've not failed in any way. You are just not ready. If you go to the TMS Healing Wall of Victory on YouTube and look at the testimonials for my book, those people all got it at the deepest level. They connected light bulb after light bulb after light bulb, and they were ready. They were ready. And so I want people to understand, if you read it real quickly and you don't heal immediately, you haven't failed. Because people really, this personality type especially, really get down on themselves.
Yeah.
They'll say, I get it, but I'm not advancing. Well, you are resisting it at a deeper level. You're not ready. It will come.
So tell me why people resist, and why does it take longer to come? Why are people resisting?
Well, you hit on it earlier.
As a person who it clicked so quickly with me, I'm trying to understand when you
were ready.
Chronic pain, everybody thinks I'm ready for this to be over.
Yeah. And it's also important to note that you can consciously accept this, but that doesn't mean anything at all. You have to unconsciously accept it. That's why his last book was called The Divided Mind. There's this battle for conscious thought in there. But the main reason for resistance, and we've mentioned a few, wanting to believe your doctor and that it's unconscious and the placebo effects and all of these things, is that they need it. You hit on that when we first started talking. It's like a crutch. Now, I've spoken to people that have deaths. They've had deaths in their family, and the sadness is so deep that they develop a pain syndrome, and they need that diversion. Their brain is helping them. It's actually doing them the favor that he talked about. And so if I come along and say, hey, here's the information to take this away, it's like they're using that pain as a crutch. It's like me kicking the crutches out from underneath of them. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants their defense shield taken away when it's protecting them from deep emotional pain.
Oh, until they're ready. Okay, that makes very much sense to me.
Exactly. Yes. And I wasn't. What happened to me in my life was too overwhelming. And so it took me more time. And I now can look back and realize it was psychologically safer for me to heal slower. And so I did. And those people appear to be the ones that the healing lasts longer in. The ones that slower. There's no done any study.
Your story is pretty powerful, Stephen. I'm excited for your new book because I loved your first book. I've actually read it a couple times. And the part in your book, The Great Pain Deception, that I keep going to is the second half, because the first half is really detailed, powerful story of your story and what you dealt with and what caused your TMS. And it was almost like by the time I was through that first half, I was kind of like, I don't know how much more. I was feeling like, I felt like I knew you. Like, I cannot believe the pain that you went through year after year after year, because you detailed this. It's almost like, look, this was my journey.
Yes.
And for you to
was the very purpose.
And one of my favorite parts in there was when you were first reading Dr. Sarno's book, you threw it across the room. You were like so angry, like, how can someone say this that, it was
the throw heard around the world.
Yeah, totally.
People talk about it.
And then the second half, that I've probably referred to that a lot of times, because to me, there's phrases that jump out that just are like, I found myself saying, yes, I know that's true. And it's about how your body heals and the whole journey. That to me is like.
And that's a high compliment. I take that as a compliment, because I wrote the book for that reason, that they would connect with my story.
Yeah.
see it in themselves,
Yeah.
then go heal. And it's working. On December 24th of this past year, I got a nice email from a soldier who was blown up by an IED in Iraq, and it was beautiful. He came back and he was in terrible pain, of course, right? And he was trying to play with his daughter, and he said, I was thinking, I'm going to be in a wheelchair, and I got to figure out how to get out of this life. He didn't want to live anymore. He found my book and he healed, and it was the greatest Christmas gift of the year by far, of course. But there are a lot of stories like that. Just, I was at the end of my rope, and I read your story, and I guess I'm getting from them, from the feedback, is that it gave me the courage to keep going.
So if you were to, in a nutshell, because I know there's a lot of people out there that need a shot of hope, what could you, in just a lot of the stuff we've just talked about, what would you say just to give people hope out of their pain, no matter what their pain is? I mean, what would you say?
That's a good question. The first thing, of course, it's always, and this is a boilerplate statement, you have to get an exam. We're not physicians. I am an expert in something called TMS. Dr. Sarno calls me an educator. You're doing a good job educating the people. So I'm a teacher, I guess. You got to make sure that the life is in no danger first. Be responsible with your life. Make sure there's not a tumor there, an aneurysm that's bleeding, or something that's deadly to the life. But if you've gotten the same old diagnosis, herniated discs and degenerated discs and stenosis and a weak core and arthritis and all these things are not causing the pain. The brain sometimes uses those sites. Sometimes. It just happens to be there. It's incidental is the word. But if you've gone through everything and you are chronic, you really need to look into this. And the first thing to do, step one, after you've cleared yourself and you've taken responsibility for your life, is to start gathering the information. Get the books. Get my book, The Great Pain Deception. Get Dr. Sarno's book. See how they tie together. And then through the knowledge, it may work like it did with you for some people. They may be the fortunate few. They'll grasp it and they'll be ready. If not, don't worry. You're not a failure. You still need this protective barrier right now. But over time, if you practice it, keep thinking about the information, keep underlining it, keep dog-earing the pages, because those people on the wall of victory, they carried it around and they studied it and they memorized the lines.
Let me ask you this. Is there a list of TMS physicians that people can, are they all over the country or?
The TMS Wiki will have some there. I don't know how up to date that it is, but there's a great one in New Jersey, Paul Guaz and Mark Sofer you can contact online. Andrea Siegel, she is one of the best out there in Washington, D.C. She was one of the co-authors in The Divided Mind. I try to keep in contact with the psychologists that he worked with and the doctors that he trained. And they're very good people. They're very nice people, compassionate. They understand this, because they all had it too. They all had TMS. I don't think any of the doctors that he trained would have believed this, except they had pain severely, and he helped them to heal. And so they've dedicated their careers to his work as well. And it's a very rewarding work. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about your new book. You touched on that a little bit, but give us a little bit more detail. And I also want you to, I know where you can go to Amazon.com and get The Great Pain Deception. This to me is we're not just trying to push a book here. To me, this is a changing thing. I have bought so many copies to give to people. I could just say, oh, go buy this book. And I do tell people that, but I would give this book to 100 million people if I could get them to read it. So, go to Amazon.com, look up The Great Pain Deception, and buy yourself a copy. And don't take my example and not read it. Read it. Yes. Open it up, get your highlighter out, and as things jump out at you, highlight, because you want to come back to it, I promise you, as you're on a healing journey. So tell us about your new book.
Yeah. The old book, The Great Pain Deception, it's doing well. I'm not making really that much money on it. It's the joy of helping people. Watching their lives transform is really fun. But you have to understand the information. You have to read it and gather the information. You really, like I said, that's about Dr. Sarno's top revelations and discoveries. It's a very small book, but I wanted to honor him this way. And the other book, I haven't quite come up with the title yet, but I'll let everybody know. It's going to be on back pain, and it's about how the science has it wrong, how the science is really damaging us. Because people only believe what they can see. They're not paying attention to the healings over here.
Yeah, so maybe what we need to do is, let's see what kind of response we get from this, and maybe do another recording with some questions that maybe people have.
Yeah, if you get questions, let me know. I try to answer every email. It's harder and harder to do. And if I get behind on them, like 5 or 10 emails or 20, I'm really lost. So I try to answer them, even though I can't answer them as lengthy as I used to.
No, that's okay. People understand. I mean, I feel so honored that I had the right connection to be able to connect with you and have a phone consultation. That was a big gift for me. So are you still doing phone consultations for people?
Yes.
Okay, so tell people how they can contact you.
They can go through my website, steveozanich.com.
Okay.
And
there's a link in this with this video that you're getting that will have this information, so you can just click on it. Yeah.
Good. And I can try to get them the right information. Several people have called me the human wiki, the TMS human wiki, because I'm like a clearinghouse. No, you need to go this way. No, go that way. And if they can talk to me, it helps a lot. A lot of people have healed from me just sitting, talking to them,
Yeah.
Or they've said and they've cried and they've realized all that they've repressed in their lives. And, or they just want to tell me how happy that they are right now, which is really nice. But, sometimes it's very powerful to speak visually, vis-a-vis, to hear someone, to see someone who actually did it. And Andrew Weil talks about this too in his book. I think it was Optimum Healing. He said it's more powerful to talk with somebody that healed from what you have than it is to hear a doctor telling you about healing. Because you are seeing it. It's a guided image in your mind. And that's why I started that Wall of Victory. People could visually see people that had been through hell and have come out on the other side of it.
Yeah, so now your Wall of Victory is on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I started it a few weeks ago.
Right, and so tell people how they can. Is that the name of the YouTube channel?
Yeah, TMS Healing Wall of Victory, the Great Pain Deception.
Okay.
If you put my name in there, it'll probably come up anyway. But
all right.
I've been so excited for a decade now, watching people heal, especially since the book has come out, that I wanted to show people what I'm seeing from my end of it. Because I'm out there, you should see this. This is really cool. But I'm personally seeing it. But now I thought, wow, I asked some of these people, would you mind saying what you just told me? And they said, absolutely. They also want to help.
Yeah, I've watched most of them. There's some really good testimonials.
Powerful.
From people. They're very powerful.
Yes.
So let's see. I think we should probably wind this up just a little bit, but I can't thank you enough, Stephen, for getting on this little call with me today and recording this for people. And I know this is what I know for sure. I know for sure that we're going to do this again, probably in the very near future, because I think we're going to have some really great responses from people. So I think you're amazing. I am grateful every day that you have come into my life, because I feel like you've made that final puzzle piece come into place for me. And I thank you for that. And I want to help other people experience the joy of living in our physical body. I mean, there is serious joy, and to be crippled by pain is just not necessary. It's just not necessary. So
thank you. Thank you for helping.
Well, thank you, Stephen. And we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Okay. Bye.